Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the July 13th meeting of the Revere City Council Zoning Subcommittee. I have with us Councilor Novoselsky, who is a member of the subcommittee, as well as Councilor Patch, who is not, but who is pinch hitting here tonight because two of our councilors are on one is on vacation, and unfortunately, Councilor Godassa is going forward on a minor medical procedure. I don't want anybody to get worried about it. So we're a little short-handed here tonight. So this is what I'm going to do. And the other unfortunate issue is that our city clerk, Ashley Melnick, has suffered a death in the family this afternoon, and I'm not going to burden her by having her up here officiating. Nonetheless, we are going to have a hearing and take the information as we normally would in light of the fact that, first of all, the councilors who are not here will be able to review the video of everything that goes on here today when they return from their respective issues, and we may not need any more information than we gather here tonight. However, I will put everyone on notice here, every petitioner on notice and any respondent on notice that on the 27th we'll be holding another subcommittee meeting, at which time I would expect that if there are any lingering questions about the applicants, we will resolve them in subcommittee on that night. So I would advise everyone to plan on being here on that night. However, should there be no further issues from the perspective of the missing subcommittee members, and they so inform me, then we will call you and let you know that you need not be here. However, one further caveat is that we expect that the full City Council will be voting on all of these matters on the 27th. Likewise, to the subcommittee issue and Councilor Haas being on vacation as well, since many of these what we're dealing with tonight require 8 votes of the full City Council, it would be exceedingly unfair to hold a vote without as close to a full membership in attendance as possible. So going forth, this is for our information, for our subcommittee's information tonight. Feel free to express yourself as openly as if everybody were here. As I say, it's being recorded. And the councils that are here, and by the way, Council President Powers has just joined us, I'm sure can capably ask the necessary questions of the applicants. And to the extent that's not possible, we'll be going forward again on the 27th. So I hope everybody understands that. If they have any questions, they can talk to the city clerk's office in the coming days. The first matter before us is C-15-02, Oxford Airport Technical Services, 47 Meacham Avenue, Elmont, New York, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to convert a non-conforming use contractor storage yard to another non-conforming use maintenance and repair facility at 885 North Shore Road. This requires a special permit from the City Council. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. James Cipolletta, 385 Broadway, Revere, on behalf of Oxford ATS. The two Massachusetts representatives are with me to answer any questions that any of the individual councilors may have. Just very briefly, what previously had occupied the premises, there was a fencing company, and it is zoned, and there is a special permit for a construction storage facility. What these gentlemen do is repair small mechanical equipment from essentially JetBlue over at Logan Airport. Anything large is done on the airport property, and it is anticipated that they would continue to repair the small pieces of equipment at the North Shore Road facility in Revere. They have been moving some things over there, storing them only. They're not doing any repairs. It is still permitted for a storage facility, but we're hopeful that eventually the council will grant the permit, a special permit, to allow them to repair as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions from the individual councilors, the ward councilor with whom we have opened a dialogue, these gentlemen would be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Before I defer to Councilor Powers, whose ward I believe this project is in, I will ask you if you've been apprised of the Site Plan Review Committee recommendations, which include the parking lot shall be striped with clear pavement markings for parking spaces 9 feet by 18 feet, and access and egress markings in accordance with the plan to be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee. 2, there shall be no outdoor storage of materials or equipment, unregistered vehicles or vehicles under repair. And 3, the existing standing accessory sign shall be removed, and all future signage shall be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee. Is that your understanding of the restrictions?
Yes, sir. I believe that was written by Frank Stringy before we last appeared before.
Are we on the same page as that? I mean, we're not obliged to approve any special permit with site plan review recommendations, although, as you're aware, Attorney Cipolletta, these things are typically well thought out by site plan review, and we often defer to their opinion on these matters. So if you have nothing more to say on that, I'll assume that you're in agreement.
Oh, yeah, there was one other item that I meant to mention. We spoke about it. It was brought up by the ward councilor, the president of the council. And I spoke to the gentleman today, and that is creating more of a screening and a barrier in terms of a fence or something, or lattice work, so that it doesn't have an appearance of a heavy commercial or industrial type site, and they've agreed that that makes perfect sense. They've spoken to a couple of the neighbors with whom they've developed a rapport as well, and they're taking into consideration everything they're saying as well.
All right.
So we wouldn't mind that being a condition
on
as
that,
well.
I'm sure Council Powers will move at some point to make that an additional condition, but I'll defer to Council Powers at this point for any further comments or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some concerns over the fact that equipment was moved in there before the permit was even granted. I hope that wasn't a thought that everything was going to be okay, because as far as I'm concerned, the permit hasn't been granted yet. I'm not totally opposed to that use down there, but I think it was a bit premature that equipment was moved in there. And my two main concerns are, I would like to see that fence, maybe some lattice work or something put in that. I don't want to see it, look like a, another eyesore on North Shore Road. I've got enough of them down there now. My primary concern is the noise factor and the hours of operation. Is there going to be a noise emanating from that site? If so, what is the decibel level? And what are your intended hours of operation? Because I don't know that they were in the site plan report.
We are a 24-hour operation, but most of our work after between 7 and 9 is down at the airport, and the shop will remain empty, other than there might be one guy that's there in the shop. There'll be no work done outside. The doors will be down if they are working there. So it's going to be quiet. All backup alarms are going to be disconnected. We're going to try and keep things as quiet as
So
possible.
when are you going to be working there? You say between 7 in the morning and,
Yeah, 7.
and 9 at night?
Probably 5 in the morning is our startup, but we do a lot of work at the airport. So I'd say 7 o'clock and probably 9 at night.
Yeah, so I'm not concerned with the airport, I'm concerned with the neighborhood primarily.
Yeah,
I don't want people calling me saying,
Yep.
I'm hearing these loud noises emanating from that site
Understood.
at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, because most people, if they're not going to work, if they're retired, they're sleeping.
Yep, I understand.
I don't get up till 7 o'clock myself, so,
Understood.
So what you're telling me is that you can assure me that from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, there'll be no noise, and whatever noise there is will be buffered by the door being closed?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I can't, during the
Yeah.
hot summer months, we're gonna have to have the doors open a little bit for airflow. We don't have no AC in there, but
Okay, but I have never experienced the noise coming from there, but I've had some concerns from some of the residents down there. And I want to make sure that, we're all on the same page.
Yep.
And as the chairman said, this will not be coming out of committee for another 2 weeks. And at that time, that's when the actual vote will take place, no matter how it's reported out of committee. It could be reported out of committee favorable or unfavorable, but
Okay.
the vote will be taken by a full city council
Yep.
on I believe it's the 27th.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, with that said, if there are any other council that want to speak on it, and I have some residents here from the area that would like to
Everybody will
speak.
get a chance to speak. I'll entertain
Thank you, sir.
Council Novoselsky's comments right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, whoever wants to answer these. Now, you understand in item number 2 that there's no outdoor storage of equipment, and that's the stuff that's in repair, your rotating machines.
belt loaders, yep.
Okay, and you can't keep those outside when they're not, at all. So you have enough room inside to be able to keep these things?
There is not enough room, in my understanding, that we could
So how do you plan
some
on?
equipment on that lot, and we're gonna only work on them inside. And we're not gonna have an extreme amount of equipment there. We bring them in as they need to be
Yeah.
repaired. Some of the stuff is done on the airport, depending on how heavy it is. But we wouldn't make any more noise than Doc Hagan's next door. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all automotive repair and,
Well, I didn't even get to that point yet. Right now, I'm talking about storage on the property, because according to site plan review, they don't want you to keep any extra equipment outside the building. Now, I'm kind of guessing that that's for after hours. Is that, through you, Mr. Chairman, through you to this board counselor, is this number 2 for after hours storage or during the day storage?
Well, my feeling, my main concern is the noise, number 1. Number 2, my other concern is if they've got 3 or 4 pieces of equipment on the lot, similar to Rent-A-Tool or someplace like that, I don't have a problem with that, but I'd like it enclosed.
okay.
I'd like some
Okay.
type of a lattice in the fence so that when people drive by, they don't see more construction equipment out there or what they perceive to
Okay.
be construction equipment.
Good, thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
And the second thing is, these belts that you have, are they electric-driven or gas-driven?
They're hydraulic.
They're hydraulic, so they don't make that much noise when they start it up?
Nope. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just by what I understand, and it is, I'll agree, it's somewhat vague when the site plan review says there shall be no outdoor storage of materials or equipment, unregistered vehicles or vehicles under repair. I would think that they're thinking in terms of overnight, not that you can't bring the equipment there, leave it outside while you're working on other equipment, and at the end of the night, if you haven't got done with what everything is on the site, you're stuck, stick it in the garage and pull it out the next morning. That would be my understanding of what they're recommending. Is that something that's going to work for you guys?
I'll have to make it work. I mean, if that's the way it is.
Well, that, we like businesses in this city, okay? We like everybody to be happy, but we also like to know that everybody is on the same page going in, so we don't have arguments and you guys have to hire Mr. Cipolletta and someone else hire somebody else, another attorney, to straighten these things out. We're much better off doing it right the first time. So to the extent, and I think this works out pretty good coming back in a couple of weeks, to the extent that you could modify what worst case scenario would be required to leave outside the building overnight, if you could give us some idea how many pieces of equipment that might have to be stored or something like that, I think Councilor Powers would be reasonably amenable to that, but we would like to know, in other words, we don't want the place so overpopulated with equipment that's just sitting there for days and days and days and days. I mean, it's one thing if you're working on the stuff, but it's another thing if you're just sitting it there to, for instance, take parts off of it. That's something that we don't want to have happen. So it's not going to be a junkyard.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just
Certainly.
clarification. How much space do you have behind the building that's usable?
None behind the building.
None at all? Okay, it's all marshland.
Well, it's all, they put crushed stone down, and we won't be able to utilize any of it.
No. Okay, thank you.
So if you could work on that a little bit and come back with something proposal-wise and as I say, no one's interested in seeing you guys not be successful here, okay? We like businesses, the place is empty now, it's not doing anybody any good. Presumably you're going to be hiring some people, you know, I could go on, but I won't. If you could come back with that on the 27th, I would expect that maybe we can resolve this, and it sounds like the ward councilor may be amenable to that. Okay?
We'll work something out, and I'll try to have it, I'll certainly loop back with the ward councilor and maybe have something in writing for the subcommittee ahead of the 27th.
That would be great. That would be
Excuse
great.
me, Mr. Chairman, in the interim, I'm going to speak with Mr. Stringy in Community Development and find out exactly what his intent was with regard to storing outside equipment there.
Yes, and perhaps you could get him to amend his recommendation to both include your proposal as well as whatever he proposes is the actual meaning of paragraph 2 in the recommendations.
Yeah, and I think that Councilor Novoselsky makes a good point when he, you know, we do not want, yourself, we do not want to see the area look like a junkyard down there. We want to, you know, we want a good business run down there. We don't want any annoyance to the neighbors down there. You know, they're our first concern. They pay taxes, they go to work, they come home, and they want to be able to relax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, fellas, why don't you have a seat, and if anybody else
Thank
would
you,
like to
Mr.
speak on this, we'd be glad to hear from you. Please state your name and your address.
Lois Linehan, 888 North Shore Road.
Thank you, Ms. Linehan. Tell us what you'd like to tell us, or ask any questions that you'd like to ask.
My only concern in that was, because I live directly across from where they are, is what their starting time was going to be, and it seemed like they answered that. I mean, because on Saturday and Sunday morning, I didn't want to be up at 5 o'clock. And so far in that, it's been really nice over there. You know, it's been quiet. I had one problem one night, and I called Mr. Jones. He had it taken care of within 5 minutes. And so far in that, so good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other comments? State your name, please, and your address.
Michael Tucker, 9 Ellerton Street. I live across the street from this. My bedroom window faces it. My concern is definitely the noise factor. If they mention that they have to keep the garage doors open, that's going to emanate across the street, right to where we live. This is not a car engine by no means. We've had the opportunity now to have them deliver all of this product over the last week. They've been bringing in equipment. It's louder because it's airport noise. I don't even know if the things need mufflers by decibels or whatever, but it is loud. So I would definitely want them to be there during business hours, not late at night, 9 o'clock being the maximum, not having to call any directors or facility supervisors to have someone come down and shut it down at 9:30 when they're still there. And 7 o'clock, I think, is fair enough to start, but they shouldn't be starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. The other concern is there is a lot of equipment there. You're welcome to drive by. They definitely have to do some screening on the street if Frank Stringy's concerned about the aesthetics. All in all, they've been I went over there, very helpful as far as talking to. They're not rude or anything, so that's a plus.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Well, as you know, from serving on various boards in the city of Revere, enforcement is another matter from permitting. So we'd like to think that the inspector's office, inspectional services, would be on top of them if they violate any of the terms of their agreement. As far as moving the equipment on there today, well, I would suggest, at least from my perspective, at this point, ironically, the storage of contractor storage seems to be within the permit that's presently on the on the lot. At least it's arguably contractor storage. They are a contractor, and they're storing
Well, storing motor
equipment.
vehicle, I'm not going to argue with you, but that's totally different than contractor storage, but I'm not going to get into that with you, Council.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But it says contractor storage yard is what it's permitted to do right now, and at least that's arguable that they have a right to do that at this point. But we'll be beyond that hopefully very soon. Thank you for your comments. Does anybody else have anything to say about this issue? All right, once again, we'll be revisiting this on the 27th. So anybody would like to speak at that point, please come back. However, your comments are well taken. As I suggested to you, the other members of the subcommittee will be reviewing this session, so everybody will have the information before we vote. And that ends that matter. The next matter before us is item number C15-03. This is a petition application from Angelica Cordona Ramirez, 23 Harrington Street, Revere, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to convert one non-conforming use, which is a medical use, to another non-conforming use, which is requested for a coffee shop on lots 74 and 76, PT 74 and 76 on Centennial Avenue at 1-4 Orr Sq in Revere, Massachusetts. Please state your name and where you live.
Good afternoon. My name is Angelica Cardona Ramirez. I live on 23 Harrington Street in Revere, and I am seeking to rent the property for a coffee shop. And right now, it used to be a medical office, and now it's for rent. And we are looking into opening a coffee shop if it's possible.
All right. Have you been made aware of site plan reviews recommendations on this matter? And I'll read them to you. It says the plans shall be reviewed and approved by the Fire Department and Board of Health, and two, that the building shall be made compliant with ADA standards.
Yes, we actually been talking to the owner of the property right now, and into getting into that situation, but we would like to know if it's going to be possible before we proceed.
Okay, so again, you're going to be responsible for making those arrangements, whether the landlord contributes to that or not.
I understand.
I would suggest that you should familiar yourselves with the ADA standards, so you know kind of what you're getting into, unless the landlord is willing to take that task on himself or herself. The other thing that you probably should consider is getting some sort of review from the fire department at the very least regarding the standards they would impose on this before you start, getting a contractor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, we actually we spoke to the person that is helping us helped us find the place, and they're gonna help us through all that so they can review all this, so we can move
Very
on
well.
as possible. And we understand there is opposition, and we like to say that we are not. I know there's a restaurant next door, and they are opposed to us doing the coffee shop. And what I would like to say that I didn't get a chance to say last time is that we are looking into improvement, and it's a coffee shop. We are not looking to compete with anybody. It's a totally unique vision and products that we're going to offer. And we're definitely not going to open a restaurant. It's not a restaurant, and it's not a pizza shop. It's a coffee shop. We're going to have a variety of, from the world, different coffee. Also, we have our own products that we manufacture and everything. And so we would like to promote that. And I think the area and the property that we would like to have it is very, we will be very elegant. I think the community will love it. Definitely, there was mentioned in the last time that a business like that will ruin the neighborhood. And I was really sad to hear that, because a decent family business will never ruin a neighborhood. I think it will improve. We will help with also our community to maintain the city, the history. We would like to bring the history of Revere alive, especially the Revere Beach is right there. So we would like to be part of what you guys already been doing, promoting the city. So since we moved to Riviera a year ago, we fell in love with the city, and we just like to move our business here too.
Well, I think that's very commendable of you. But I want you to understand one thing, that regardless, anybody can say anything they want before us about it's a public hearing. We respect people's opinions and their right to speak freely. But this subcommittee, neither the subcommittee nor the city council as a whole, in any way, shape, or form, has any concerns about competition. We were born under, including this country, but all of us under a system of capitalism whereby competition is respected and encouraged. And so there's no, regardless of what other people might object to, on what basis they may object to you, we as a body do not take into considerations of competition. Our only concern is whether the use that you're proposing is more detrimental to the neighborhood than the one that was already there. And that's really the only basis of consideration that we really have. Having said that, I'll ask if our, by the way, I want to welcome Councilor Janino. We were not expecting you here. We thought you were on vacation, and we're glad to see you back. Welcome back. So in any case, if I believe Councilor Novoselsky is the ward councilor, so if he has any questions, I'll defer to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I ask, when you say different types of coffees and besides that, what other type of foods are you going to be serving?
It will be just maybe a few bakes and goods to complement with the coffees, but we're definitely not looking to have like a kitchen or anything. No, it will be something very more environmental coffee shop.
Are you going to be making your own pastries?
No, we're
You'll be
not.
bringing them in? The only thing you'll be making is the coffee?
We will have an oven. I say like this because we used to have a coffee shop in downtown Boston. There was a bad partnership issue there. That's why we're no longer there. So we decided to move our business elsewhere. And we used to have an oven there and do the baking there. That's it. But everything will come prepared. We won't be making anything there from scratch.
How big is the oven? So
not-
it's like the
not
size
so
of a
big.
microwave?
Yes, it's mostly with the coffee and some, concession snacks.
Now, you said you had another business. Do you have any other business right now other than what you're seeking?
Right now we do. We still have because we make some coffee beans covered in chocolate, and that's the business that we have right now
And where is that?
in East Boston.
That's- Oh, okay. In general, I don't have a problem with people having competition, but sometimes this is an issue of a concentration of certain types of businesses in one group, in one small area. And in this case, we have the Bagel Bin, we have Dunkin' Donuts within 100 feet of you, we have coffee being served at Tedeschi's. We have another coffee shop the next block up. And right now there's that's four coffee shops, I would call them, but they're serving coffee and some kind of pastry, within a small confined area. And, I have a density problem.
I understand, and I can assure you that our products and the service that we will give the community that will come in will be satisfied that they will come back. And, I think it's clientele for everybody. And even though there's a lot of coffee shops, they all have clientele, and they all bring their customers back. And we're willing, we know the service is also very important in our business.
And I know the chairman mentioned about the site plan review, and Mr. Chairman, I would want to, before we even come to a vote, I would want to see a report from the fire department and the Board of Health of what's going to be done, what has to be done, and also I want a guarantee. I want a guarantee from either you or the building owners that this place would be handicap accessible in all aspects. I'm talking about access, I'm talking about ladies' room, I'm talking about men's room, full handicap accessibility. That's one of my pet peeves for anybody.
All right,
You
we
know,
are going to
so-
look into that, and on the 27th, we will have those
So,
information.
you know, I would hope to get a report from fire and fire inspection and Board of Health of what's going to be done, what is going to be required, and a guarantee. And I would expect a written guarantee, especially on the ADA issue. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, in closing on this issue, I would suggest that you will not get an occupancy permit. You can expect not to get an occupancy permit, nor will you get a victuals permit if it is not ADA compliant anyway. So your guarantee will be, the guarantee will be that you'll get the necessary permitting only if you are compliant. According to that. But I would anticipate you should come back here on the 27th as well, addressing Councilor Novoselsky's issue and perhaps answering some other questions.
Okay, just one question
Certainly.
before I step out. The business before, it was a medical office. And how was the handicap situation with the medical office when they were there?
Well, they may have been grandfathered in as far as those conditions are concerned. But now we're starting anew. You must know, I'm sure, are aware that the ADA is a relatively new statutory provision and a federal provision as well. So it's prospective more than anything else, because obviously if you started applying some of the requirements to buildings that have been built 50, 60, 70, even 200 years ago, that wouldn't work out very well. But we're looking forward to making sure that in the future, as we go forward, more and more of our public amenities are accessible to all Americans.
Mr. Chairman,
Certainly, Councilman.
just a point of information to the ladies. I did speak to the landlord last week, and she asked me why. And I explained to her, once you do a change of use from a medical to anything in one place, you're opening the door for everything to be up to date as far as code is concerned. So there's no grandfather involved in this, spot. That's what, and I told Debbie that, and so what has to be done. I did tell her about tonight, but I guess she couldn't make it, but, maybe she'll come to the next one. But, there's a reason why we have to go full blast on something like this.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for appearing, ladies. Is there anyone else that has any comments or questions about this petition? If not, you do? No? Yes, no? Yes. Well, step up to the plate. We've only got another 15 minutes here. Come on, you're faster than that, Bill. State your name, please, and your address.
Bill Jackson, 95 Stanton Avenue, Revere. I'm basically here to speak to the character of George Baldassi and his family, Hansi and Catherine, who all of them have worked very hard to make the Bagel Bin the success that it is. The Bagel Bin opened 16 years ago. I personally have been going there for the last 10 years when I moved into Revere. The Bagel Bin, when George took over, was simply doing breakfast and lunch. Now it's doing breakfast, lunch, dinner, and pizza, and it's open much later at night. When George began, he had himself and I think 2 other employees, and it's now up to 5 employees plus George himself. The Bagel Bin is an institution in this city of Revere. And although, as you mentioned, Councilor Reardon, competition is a vital part of our Constitution, and I'm not questioning the question of competition. So with respect to a couple of issues that definitely would come into play in making a decision, number one would be parking. It's already difficult to find a place to park on Shirley Avenue to go into the bagel bin. So now we're going to have two similar type of restaurants next to each other, and I would guess then that the parking would be more difficult, there'll be more traffic. And by the way, the doctor's office that was there had very few customers. I don't know, maybe 8, 10 a day. The bagel bin and this new coffee shop together are going to increase the traffic and parking, particularly in the spring and then the summer and then their fall. When people go to the beach, a lot of them walk up to Shirley Avenue to get a cup of coffee or to maybe have lunch and so forth. So with the wonderful character of the family, everything they've done for this community in terms of contributing to various causes, but essentially my statement is that I feel that the parking will become much more difficult, the traffic will become much more difficult, and even though I don't drive, I can walk to the bagel bin. I think it's going to present some difficulties that this committee should take into account. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Bill. And I believe everything you say about the bagel bin is absolutely true. If anyone else would like to speak on this matter, otherwise we're going to hold it over in committee and subcommittee rather until Councilor Novoselsky.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing. Maybe, I know there's some other people here. We've just got to raise their hands for or against for those that are here on this issue.
That's not my practice, as you well know, Councilor
know,
Novoselsky, so I'm not going to do that.
Okay. We'll get it later.
It's way too small a sampling in any case. So with that, we'll table this matter until the 27th. Thank you. Next on the agenda is an application of 1141 Revere Beach Parkway Realty LLC, Le Hermitage, is that what it's? 3200 North Ocean Boulevard, apartment 2110, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to operate a fast food, takeout, drive-in restaurant, a car wash, and for the use of the existing non-conforming rooftop signs on lots 1 and 4 at 1141 Revere Beach Parkway in Revere. If the petitioner could please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Emilio Favorito, 7 Dawes Street, Boston, attorney for the proponent, and I have with me Joseph Capola. Address?
All right, Joe Capola, 337 Sharpness Pond Road, North Andover.
Thank you, gentlemen. If you'd like to elucidate on your information you've already given at the public hearing, we'd be glad to hear it.
The one additional piece of information that we're circulating at the moment is photographs of the structure. At the last, when we were in here last, we did not have the dimensions of the existing rooftop sign. Joe was able to clamber up on the roof and measure it. It measures 10 feet by 20 feet, as depicted in the photographs that are going around, and we're seeking to enter into the record. Other than that, we stand prepared to address any concerns or questions that the members may have.
Thank you, gentlemen. I am the ward counselor for this particular piece of property, and I do have some questions. First of all, I would like to know what the intended, and I know we've already spoken of this back and forth, but and I had praised you, I think, that I would expect an answer from you. The intended hours of operation of both of these operations, one being the donut shop, the other being the car wash. And let me preface my remarks to save some time. My understanding is that the donut shop is not going to be operated necessarily by the LLC, but will likely be leased to a more experienced operator. Is that my understanding?
That is correct.
All right. But the car wash will be operated by the property owner, and I guess that's, I suppose, the bigger concern. But I would like to get some idea of the expected hours of operation of both, and whether or not the donut shop portion of the operation is feasible if the hours are restricted, particularly to late at night issues. And I'll explain my reasoning after you've given your answer.
Joe, do you want to take that?
Well, I think coffee shop operations generally want to operate 5 in the morning till 11 at night. I don't know if you were thinking of more restricted hours than that. I mean,
And what about the car wash?
the car wash, the rollover style car washes that those are, can operate unattended and generally do go 24 hours a day. If that's a sticking point with neighbors, and we wanted to match that to the coffee shop operations of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., that's something that wouldn't be too burdensome on us.
Well, back me up onto the car wash situation. I guess I must have wished, what are your intended operating hours for the car wash?
It's typically that type of wash does operate 24 hours a day, but if the committee and the neighbors think that's going to be a problem, I would match that to the coffee operations of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Well, I think that you could expect that to be the case. I would also ask whether or not you've had an opportunity to review the site plan review recommendations. They're not that long, so I'm going to read them. Street and sidewalk bond must be placed on file with the DPW, secure performance for the installation of utilities, construction and concrete sidewalks, granite curbing, construction of driveways, construction of retaining walls, if applicable, and landscaping with respect to the operation of a fast food takeout, drive-in restaurant, and car wash. 2, the final plans must be reviewed and approved by the fire department. 3, the parking lot shall be paved and striped with clear pavement markings for traffic flow. 4, the proponent shall secure a curb cut permit and comply with access and egress design standards from Mass DOT and DCR for safe access and egress onto Revere Beach Parkway. 5, a sewer connection and water connection permits must be obtained with the DPW and engineering department for all new services into the building. 6, stormwater management and drainage plans shall be submitted to and approved by the Site Planning Review Committee. 7, all walkways within the site shall be concrete and all curbing shall be either precast concrete or granite. 8, a landscaping plan shall be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee, which shall include landscape buffer and screening area between abutting residential properties and the site, as well as interior landscaped islands and landscaping along the full frontage of the site. 9, all drive-through aisles and stacking lanes shall not conflict with the proposed parking spaces and the flow of interior traffic. 10, the exterior facet of the building shall be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee. And 11, a final as-built plan and landscaping plan must be filed with the city engineer and building inspector prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. So there are 11 pieces to that. I certainly hope you've had an opportunity to review and consider them if you'd like to comment on that.
We have made aware of the requirements of the Site Plan Review Committee. Oh, I'm sorry. We are in receipt, and we were in timely receipt, have had the opportunity to review it, and do not have any issues with them other than the clarification that we sought and received with respect to number 4, that with regard to curb cut permit, should one be required by state DPW, is our position relative to this matter, that no curb cut permit will be required because we're not making any changes to any of the, we are not introducing any new curb cuts. Everything is via existing roadway sections.
Let me ask you this. So one assumes then the present access and egress points through Borden Street will be maintained for this project rather than an entry directly off of the Revere Beach Parkway. Is that the theory here?
The entrance to the property is off of Borden. Traffic exiting the property would utilize the existing curb cut that exists on the Parkway.
Okay, so there is a curb cut on the Parkway to get out directly from the property? They're both on board. That's what I thought.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So those will be the existing entryways and exit ways from the property?
Yes.
Okay, and has site plan review give you any opinion as to whether or not they'll be adequate? I mean, it sounds to me like their recommendation anticipates a curb cut on the Parkway.
I saw clarification that from
Yeah.
Mr. Stringy, and he indicated only, that only
If necessary.
if the state requires.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll have a discussion with him before the 27th anyway as to what his actual intent was. Let's hope you're correct that Borden Street will be, I mean, I theoretically at least don't have any problem. I kind of thought that you would be interested in a curb cut onto the Parkway to make easier access onto the Parkway, but I'm not an engineer, so, but I'll talk to Mr. Stringy about that before the 27th and see if we can be certain what his thoughts are on that matter before we get beyond the pale, so to speak. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a quick point here. I'm very familiar with this this building as a former police officer. Had many opportunities when it was a lounge, unfortunately, to go there. And I had to deal with the neighbors also about the noise complaints and the fighting and everything else that went on in the parking lot. And I think this type of business is it puts some relief to the neighborhood, as long as they go along with the agreement, agree with the plan site review. But after many years of that being a lounge and all the problems they had down there, that I'm sure the neighbors will welcome this. And also, knowing the owner of this that's put in for this business, he runs 2 other properties that I know of. He probably some more, but he does a fine job and he keeps a clean place. So I just want to make that point. They just don't, for public safety reasons, this is a lot better than what they had down there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question through you to the applicant. Do you also own Lot B off Borden Street? Because we're talking about the building on 1 and 4. It's showing, yeah, I'm looking at a small plot plan. And right along Borden Street, there's Lot B, Lot 4, and Lot 1 working in from the street.
That's parking for the apartment buildings, Councilor. That's not part of that property.
Really?
Ownership is limited to lots 1 and 4. It's a larger scale plan. Lot 1 and 4 are properties involved. Lot B is not.
Because right now, there's nothing on it, and it's being used as an access point onto the property from Borden Street, right?
No.
If I remember.
No. Access is via on lot 4.
That's at the end.
It is. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I'm kind of surprised knowing the site and the location. Seems to me, when you come off the Parkway, heading westbound, you're coming in that cut street, the parking area from the apartment house along the Parkway, and then you could take a right onto Borden and go up the hill. But if you went straight, you're going right into the property. I don't know where your curb cut would be.
When you go straight, that doesn't go through Lot B. That's a separate piece of property that's actually state property.
Okay.
It's not part of Lot B. We both, Lot B, the apartment building parking, and our property both use that as access.
So your curb, so your curb cut really has to be on the parkway technically. Because otherwise you're cutting through their property to get to your Lot 1, to Lot 4. We'd have to clarify that. I'm just going from what I see the property, and I don't know where the borderlines are in actuality. Someday, we'd have to go down and take a look and show exactly where they are.
What he's talking about is property here.
So
Can I show this to you, Councilor?
it's up to the chairman if he wants to allow it.
I think the problem is that
Right over here, Jeff.
this drawing actually doesn't particularly show it very well.
Okay, yep. Right here, this is the church.
Just for everybody's edification, we are just discussing the map, the zoning map, and which properties are going to be affected by this. And it appears that some of the property that is customarily associated with the site is actually not owned by the applicant, but is a portion of an old roadway before Revere, before the Northeast Expressway was built. Something interesting that I was not aware of until I actually looked at the map. And it's pretty obvious that there's an old parkway map here, and that's where it used to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for taking up so much time.
That's quite all right. I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't aware that's where the parkway went at one time. It was before my time. Much isn't, but that was. All right, gentlemen, if you have nothing else to say, I'll ask if there's anybody else who'd like to speak on the matter, okay? And I would have guessed this is for points of clarification, as we already discussed without going into it, that we'll expect you back here on the 27th for that clarification. All right. Would anybody else like to speak on this matter? And state your name and your address, please.
My name is Edward Fantasia, 211 Fennel Street.
Yes, sir.
I've been up in that area for 50 years or better. I was able to two restaurants over there. We have our street has more traffic. More motorcycles between our street and the Parkway. Now we have a motorcycle place coming down on Broadway. They're going to be coming down the Parkway to test their bikes and coming up Fennel Street to go the other way. We have 24 hours a day, there's motorcycles and cars speeding up with that thing. And this, what they were saying, a 24-hour car wash, I'd rather have a restaurant there. This is ridiculous. But our street is belong at the end of the city, and we're lost down there. I mean, I don't know what you guys want to talk about or whatever, but.
Well, I think we've already discussed the 24-hour business, and that's not going to
But
happen.
even so, right, even if it's a regular car wash, right, We had restaurants down there, like the restaurants weren't there at 5 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. They were open 11 o'clock to maybe 1, 2 o'clock, whatever the law is now, right? Me, my personal thing is, we don't need another store island down there. It's going to traffic alone, on our street alone. I lost 2 cars, and I had a car driven into my front of my house because of whatever happened on that street alone. Okay? The street, they go up, they're zooming up that street, the motorcycles now, the cars now, they have no mufflers on their motorcycles. Years ago, they had a muffler, and they used to be inspected by the registry with like a broomstick to stick with a muffler. All these guys are riding with straight pipes. Now, we get that motorcycle place coming, we think they're gonna test their motorcycles. They're gonna go down the Parkway, come up Wood, and come down Fennel. No other way, guaranteed. No other way. I hope people will help us out. Mr. Pat said he knew about the place when it was the 2 restaurants that were there before. And I'd rather have a restaurant there than what they want to put down there. If people want to put things down there, they don't even live in the city. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to? Anybody have any other questions or comments before I make mine? Your points are well taken. Let me separate the wheat from the chaff here a little bit. We've already got the motorcycle place on Broadway. Nothing's going to change that, whether it's a car wash or anything. I'm sure they're not going to be running their motorcycles through the car wash if that makes you feel any better. But Council Patch's point is particularly well taken, and I've experienced this myself. And what Mr. Coppola could do in that property right now is continue its operation as a facility that dispenses alcohol in any kind. Now, you've stated to me on the telephone that when it was
Holiday in prime time.
prime time, no problems with prime time. All right, but there are no guarantees that the next thing that goes in there will be prime time, but or a quiet restaurant that closes at 10 o'clock at night. In fact, the trend seems to be the opposite. We see more and more what I'll describe as nightclubs, for lack of a better word. Probably there's a different term for it these days. Some of these places don't even open till 10 o'clock at night, and that's how late they go. And my fear is that something is going to go there that will be much, much more difficult for the neighborhood to deal with than a car wash and a donut shop. That's my concern as I deliberate on this, that it could be much worse. I don't think anything's going to change the fact that the motorcycles might come down Parkway and head up Borden Street and go back down Fennel. But I don't think, I doubt if they're going to be stopping for a coffee or, again, a car wash to get, if they're testing a motorcycle. I don't see that happening, and I hope it doesn't happen at all. I hope they go all the way up the Parkway and swing all the way back down and come down Broadway if that's how they have to do it, down the expressway and then down Broadway. We don't know what the traffic pattern's going to be. But the fact of the matter is that's a fait accompli in Mom's motorcycle, and we'll deal with those issues as they arise. And I think that your point about 24-hour operation, however, is well taken. I don't think a facility, a car wash facility, either needs to operate 24 hours or in that particular neighborhood should. So I'm sure we'll be talking about some restriction on that going forward.
If you even get the donut shop in there, they're going to be open 24 hours a day. But I can't see somebody taking a motorcycle ride and testing a motorcycle and going beyond that into the shortcut to come back.
They're going to do that whether there's a car wash or a donut shop in there?
I'm not talking about them going into the car wash. I'm talking about taking the motorcycle. If they're in there working on somebody's motorcycle, now the mechanic wants to take it out for a test ride.
Yeah.
Where do you think he's going to go? Is he going to go down the Parkway and turn around?
No, I think there's a very likelihood that they're going to go up Borden Street, but I don't see how that's going to be changed by the fact that there's a restaurant.
We don't need another. Would these cars all going to go down there? They're car wash, right? Now they're going to come out of the parking lot and take a right on the Parkway. They're going to come up Borden Street and go left or right.
Again, that's an issue I think that will happen no matter what goes there. And something's going to go there, for sure.
I don't really think we need something like that over there.
Well, your opinion is well taken. Thank you. Councilor Janelle?
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick points. First of all, as for the applicant of this, I've been to several of his other properties, and they're all immaculate. He has a top-notch facility in Saugus and the one in Revere. They're always perfectly landscaped, really nice staff. I don't think you could ask for a better business owner to be on a property like that, so I'm very comfortable having that. I've spoken with some other residents on the street, and I know that the last property that was there was a nightmare. You had loud cars playing music at 2 and 3 in the morning and driving up Fenno Street, and I don't think that this is going to attract any of that. I think, if anything, it will help to reduce having another restaurant or business like there was there previously. My only question about this is, since this is going to be affected in the Boarding Street area, I've spoke with Donnie Goodwin about this before, but there's a ton of improvements that need to be done on Fenno Street right now. The winter killed that intersection. It floods constantly. So I hope that if we're developing in this area, we kind of tackle that all at once. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. If there's nothing else, I'm sorry, Councilor Novoselsky.
I'm sorry, just one thing. We're talking about all self-car washes. This isn't like your drive-through type.
These are 2 car wash bays. It's not
Bays.
self-service. It's what people may refer to as a laser wash or rollover. There's no attendant loading you. You actually pay and load yourself, although it will be an attended site to assist people in the process, but it's actually controlled by the person. But it's not a conveyor like the wash I
Right.
have on Squire Road.
Yeah, it's similar to the one in Chelsea on Eastern Ave.
No, those are self-serves where you get out and wash your car yourself.
Right.
In our Saugus location, we have a regular conveyorized tunnel.
Right.
And then we have one, what we call a rollover, where you would pay your money, you would go into the car wash bay, the doors close behind you, and the car wash moves over you instead of you moving through the car wash, because it's only 1 car length long, and we wash 1 car at the time. But there's no self-serve involved. You would stay in your car at all times.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, just a point that whether it's the 1-car bay or whatever it may be, people tend to come out of the bay and they dry off their vehicles, which they do almost at every car wash. But some car washes, I've actually heard what they do. They leave their doors open and they blast their radios. And I'm just kind of afraid, and I'm not saying that I'm against the project. I'm just something that we have to be aware of. Because you got the all those apartments there from above and below and aside, that people will be drying off their cars and blasting their radios. And the way they do with the bass now, it's terrible. So I would just be careful and try and control stuff something like that.
On this proposed plan, different than any other car wash I've been to, and I've been to many, if you'll notice on the plan, there are no vacuum islands, there are no vacuums, there's no vending, there's no mat holders on the whole property. Even though it's a profitable business, it is not the right place for that type of activity. And I've already talked to a lot of the neighbors about that. And the reason I did that is so that people are not encouraged to get out and perform any activity on the property except to drive through, go back on the parkway. That's why there's none of that proposed on this plan.
Thank you, Councilor. All right, though, we're going to hold this over till the 27th for more information, as we discussed, and it won't be reported out till then. So there is no need for anybody to stay for a vote tonight. There will be no vote taken on this or any other matter coming before the City Council because of the absence of a couple of city councils. Last on the agenda is application C-15-05, an application of Peter Latanzi, Jr., trustee of the L&L Realty Trust, 166 Winthrop Avenue, Revere, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to construct a 1-story rear addition for the expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use professional office within the RB district on Lot 22 at 166 Winthrop Avenue, Revere, Massachusetts. State your name and your address, Peter.
Peter Latanzi, Jr., 166 Winthrop Ave, Revere. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council.
And you did appear before us at the public hearing. What is the, just if you would, I would say, ask briefly at this point, review what you've discussed then and any additional information you'd like to offer.
Sure. The back of our building right now, there's a decking area that's about 600 square feet. So what we're looking to do is square off the back of the building. We're not going any further than the building is now, and we're not going any further to the right than the building is now. It's basically about 631 square feet where we would enclose it, and then our insurance agency that it's been there for over 40 years would occupy that space as well. I did have an opportunity to review what the site plan committee had issued, the 3 points. And the first one, the building plans must be reviewed and approved by the fire department, absolutely. The second one, we already meet. There shall be 11 on-site parking spaces. We actually have 12 now. I'm thinking of removing one for a buffered, more of a buffered landscape area, but we certainly will have the 11. And the third one is for the landscape buffered zone, which we actually have now a 5-foot landscape buffering zone that we planted probably 15 years ago. So the evergreens that are there are actually matured, and it looks nice.
Thank you, and thank you for helping me do my job. Any councilors have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want, real quick, I just want to say that I've been doing business there for years with first with his father and with him, and I parked in the back, and he's got plenty of parking places. He's I don't think that he's always been a good neighbor, and I see no problem with what he's planning, so I'd be in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch.
Thank you.
Well, if there aren't any other councilors, I'm sorry, Councilor Janino?
Thank you. I just wanted
You got
to.
to wave, you know, my eyes
I
are
know,
getting
I'm
old. You really
left
got to
field
give it a
over here.
big wave, okay?
I just, Councilor Patch said most of what I wanted to say, but Peter runs a great business in the city, and we're happy to have him, and anything that we can do to help increase that, I'm more than happy to, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Councilor. Thank you.
Well, that having been said, I would concur with Councilor Patch's comments. Obviously, as I said at the outset, first hearing, that we have to take care of our businesses in any way possible that doesn't disturb the neighborhood and the butters, understanding that many of our neighborhoods are business-oriented, and many of our businesses are in neighborhoods. So we will hold this matter in committee because of the fact that there aren't going to be a full city council to vote on it, and I think that would be doing you a disservice in case there are any dissenters, because you do need 8 votes. So I don't think we need any more information, however. If the clerk does decide, or some of the missing council members, Council Zambuto and Council Janino, have any questions, she'll give you a call, and perhaps you can come forward. You're certainly welcome to come for the regular council meeting, or come to the subcommittee meeting as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Very quickly, please. We close that hearing, and go
I
ahead.
understand, I appreciate it. Was there any possible way that some of our neighbors may be aware of what's going on down there?
We had neighbors here at the public hearing. We had nobody here tonight but you, and we're having another public hearing on it not a public, subcommittee hearing on it on the 27th. So you can certainly bring neighbors down here. I know there were several of them here on the first night, and we discussed the matter, and I think the applicant satisfied most of your neighbors of what he was trying to do, and that they were pleased with his presentation. So you could discuss it with them, and certainly bring them next time, because that'll be the time before it goes to the full city council. Thank you. With that, I believe the overtime, 20 minutes over overtime we were allowed has been exhausted. Councilor Novoselsky, partly due to your comments, I'll have to say. And that will conclude the July 13, 2015 zoning subcommittee meeting. We'll be convening a public works subcommittee meeting in about 2 minutes. Thank you.